Monday, Flosstube. Hello, crafty friends. How's everybody doing today? I hope you have a cup of coffee. I hope that you've got some stitching or some knitting, something in hand, because I have a funny feeling today is going to be a bit of a longer chat. My name's Caroline. Welcome back. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for coming for a visit. Daily crafty chats. So today, most of today is going to be me diving into the comment section of the video that I put up on Saturday, where I said if anybody had any questions about how we live up here on the island, that I would be happy to answer them on Monday. I got a lot of questions. So I would love to kind of make my way through the comment section, sort of going from the oldest comments to the newest comments. I'll see how much I can get through today. But before we do that, a little bit of crafting chat today. I know that I had mentioned on Saturday that I was going to be going through these bags right here today. I don't think I'm going to have time to do that because it's already 2 o'clock in the afternoon and it's going to take me quite a while to get through these questions. And I still have a fair bit of secret stitching to do that I'd like to get to today. I've had a really nice day so far. It's been very quiet. Nicholas has gone home with his dad for a few days back to London, and they're keeping busy. Nicholas is visiting with a friend of his that you know, they're meeting at the park and getting together and playing at the park before the kids go back to school, because his friend will be returning to in-person school and Nicholas will be starting virtual schooling from up here at the beginning of September. So we thought it was a good chance for the boys to get together before the fall. So yeah, I think I'm going to save that for tomorrow. So something for both of us to look forward to tomorrow, because my secret stitching, I still have a fair bit to do and I want to make sure that I concentrate on that for the rest of the day. But I do want to take care of the Because Monday giveaway first, because it's Monday and we need to have a giveaway on Monday. These happen over on the Facebook group, the Friday Off the Grid Facebook group. Last week I was offering up a Lizzie Kate snowman chart. This is the 2010 snowman. And adorable, adorable. And the winner of that chart is Elizabeth Von Hahn. So congratulations, Elizabeth. A familiar name to me. Elizabeth has written me several lovely emails, and I know that she is currently also working on the Glendon Place Hope and Strength Stitch Along, and is way further ahead than me. And if I'm not mistaken, is the top half done? In my mind, I'm seeing it complete, but I don't think the entire design is complete, if I'm not mistaken. But at least the top half is done, completely beaded and everything, and it's quite something. So it's an inspiration to me to get back to mine as soon as possible. So Elizabeth, congratulations. If you want to message me your mailing address, I will get that out to you. I have a new chart up for today. This is a Heart in Hand needle art chart, and it's called Two Become One. I think this has got to be one of the nicest small wedding samplers that I've seen. It's absolutely beautiful. So this is the chart, and you can see there, it's just simple and elegant. And it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. Heart and Hand needle art. Beautiful. So the name of this chart is Two Become One. It's in the We One collection. This is a really sweet chart. And this is once again thanks to Sylvia Perez Hardy. This is one of the charts that she very generously gave to me last year so that I would have some charts for giveaway. There's another photo on the back here of another Heart and Hand design that I think is also would make a really sweet companion piece. and it's called Always Together, Never Apart. You can see that there. Isn't that sweet? I think that's really... I love how simple this is, because you could really... This is a small. If you were doing a smalls exchange, this is a small. I just think it's so simple and elegant and really, really pretty. Kind of sad to be giving it away. I think it's perfect. Anyway, this is the giveaway for this week. Let's make sure that that is focusing on the correct thing. I can't quite see it all that well, so I'm going to assume that you got a good look. Beautiful. Okay. So the other thing that I have to tell you about today before we get to the questions, do you remember, and if you're a member of the Facebook group, you'll know this well and truly already, our Charlotte Lacey, who was working on the full coverage Heaven and Earth design Literate Dragon, has completed it. And I shared her photo last week or the week before of her progress where she was closing in on a finish. Well, she shared a video of taking her final 4 stitches on her piece and then shared that with us. And then she took it out, she ironed it, she hung it up, and then she shared that as well. It is astonishing, like literally jaw-dropping, this piece. So I'm going to point you in the direction of Charlotte's Instagram page, and it is her Instagram page is at Lacey Charlotte, and I will I'll put a link to that in the drop down box below, because then you can get a nice up close look of Charlotte's work. It was really just, you know, I gave out a little cheer when I saw it, because, you know, I feel like that piece has kind of grown up with us on the Friday Off the Grid group. We've watched Charlotte working on it faithfully. You know, every week we've had an update, and to see it come to life and be finished is just, it was quite special. So thank you, Charlotte, for sharing that with us. And I hope everyone will go over and check it out. Okay, so let's get to the main event. So like I said, I'm just going to be talking. So you know, grab your coffee, grab your stitching, and I'll answer some questions. I started off the video today with a little slide screen of maps so that you could see, that you'd have an idea of where I am in the world. I'm coming at you from Georgian Bay, Ontario, Canada. And I went from big to small, map of Canada, map of Ontario, map of the Great Lakes, map of Lake Huron, then to the map of the eastern shore of Georgian Bay, which is in Lake Huron, on Lake Huron. And we are one of the many, 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 many thousands of tiny little islands found on the eastern shore of Georgian Bay. Literally thousands of islands. Some of them so tiny that if the water goes up, then the water goes over them. And it's a pretty special place to live. So, all right. So I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. Most of the questions, majority of the questions, are about the island, cottage living, so on and so forth. There might be the odd crafting question in here. I'll do my best to answer everything as we go, and we'll see how long we get. I think I'm already 10 minutes in, so here we go. Okay, so Nancy wants to know, how big is your boat? Do you take all the supplies in your craft room back with you? Okay, so our boat, John, my little family, John and I, we have a Boston whaler. I'm not a fan of boats, so I don't really know all the details about the boat, but it's got an open cab, the console's in the middle, and I think it's 21 feet, but it's open. It's open to the air. There's no, you know, down section where you're covered or anything like that. My father-in-law has a larger boat, he has a boat that is manufactured in Nova Scotia. So it's an ocean-going tug sort of style boat that he has, and that has a proper cab on the front. So when the weather is rough, which on Georgian Bay, the wind and the weather is unpredictable here, you can go from calm glass water to a storm whipped up lake in about 30 minutes. So you have to always keep your eye on the forecast if you're going to be out on the boat. So when the weather is bad or rough, I much prefer his boat because and our boat's perfectly safe. It's just the feeling of being tucked away and safe and secure. But like I said, I'm not a fan of the boat. I don't like boating. I don't like being on the boat at all. But I go on it to get here and I go on it to get home. And that's about it. So the second question, do you take all the supplies in your craft room back with you? Good question. I take many of the supplies, but not all of the supplies. I do leave duplicates here. You know, I've got a duplicate cutting mat, I've got a duplicate ruler, I've got duplicates of, you know, my ironing board and those kinds of things. I have a basic setup here. I do leave some thread spools here. I leave some, you know, my books and some patterns. I will leave the odd whip here. I don't leave fabric here. All of my fabric comes home. So everything that you see here that's in the cubbies, none of that stays. It's just, I would hate for anything to happen. You never know what's going to happen over the winter when the place is closed up. And that would be quite upsetting if it were to be destroyed by animals or anything like that. Not that we have a big problem with that, but I would rather err on the side of caution. And yes, it's a big production when I move here at the beginning of the season. We usually have to bring the trailer because most of the stuff is my craft room supplies. So and the family constantly tease me about it. We wouldn't have to bring the trailer if it wasn't for all of your stuff. So fair enough. Okay, so Nancy, thanks for the question. Candy Gordon is next, and she asks, how far are you from your other home? Well, my other home is in London, Ontario, and it is approximately, depending on who's driving, it's about a 5-hour drive. We tend to take the back roads. We don't take the highway to get here. It's a much more interesting drive through the more rural area of our province. So it takes about 5 hours. Also, this year, there's no stopping. We don't stop. So we make sure that when we leave home, now I haven't been back and forth, but John and Sarah go back and forth every, you know, however often, whenever they can. And this year, because of the pandemic and the situation with, you know, just being cautious and careful, they do all of the shopping at home in London, grocery shopping at the grocery store that they've been going to. One person does the shopping, packs the car, and then they pack a coffee, they pack snacks, they pack, you know, everything that they need. They fill up the car before they leave and then drive all the way to where our dock is and then boat over. So it's about a 5-hour drive and then about another 20-minute, maybe, and again, depends on who's driving the boat and which boat it is, 15 to 20-minute boat ride from the dock on the mainland to here out on the island. Another question from Nancy. Nancy has come back here and she says, do you ever do patchwork project bags or the ones with the vinyl on one side? I do occasionally do patchwork bags. I love to make patchwork bags. Not very often, but I do not. I'm having a bit of trouble with my memory card today, so we'll give it another try. Sorry if there's a fair number of interruptions. But anyways, carrying on. No, I'm sorry, I don't make the project bags with the vinyl in the front, but there are lots of other wonderful bag makers out there who do. Okay, so the next cottage question that I have comes from Teresa Morgan. And Teresa asks, I was wondering where all the scrapes came from on the rocks. Now by scrapes, I'm not sure whether you mean the grooves in the rock or the growth that's on the rock, moss and lichen and that sort of thing. So what I've done is we are on top of what's known as the Canadian Shield where I live here, which is actually a really, really interesting thing to know about. So I have a little thing to read here to you about the Canadian Shield because I wanted to make sure I got it right. And it tells you all about our rock. So anytime I show you video or footage of our rock is astonishingly beautiful. It's colorful. It is, it's hard to describe. The whole island is basically a giant rock with things growing out of it. You can't build into it. You'd have to blast the rock if you wanted to put in a basement or something like that. But that's why our cottage is on stilts, as it were. Stilts is kind of the wrong way to put it. They're concrete tubes that our cottage sits on, and we can walk underneath the cottage. Well, most of it. Part of it is a little too shallow. But anyways, the Canadian Shield. The Canadian Shield constitutes the largest mass of exposed Precambrian rock on the face of Earth. The region as a whole is composed of ancient crystalline rocks whose complex structure attests to a long history of uplift and depression, mountain building, and erosion. Some of the ancient mountain ranges can still be recognized as a ridge or belt of hills, but the present appearance of the physical landscape of the Canadian Shield is not so much a result of the folding and faulting and compression of the rocks millions of years ago, as it is the work of ice in relatively recent geologic time. During the Pleistocene epoch, 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago, the vast continental glaciers that covered northern North America had this region as a center. The ice, in moving to the south, scraped the land bare of its overlying mantle of weathered rock. Some of this material was deposited on the shield when the ice melted, but the bulk of it was carried southward to be deposited south and southwest of the Canadian Shield. The resulting surface consists of rocky, ice-smoothed hills with an average relief of 30 meters, 100 feet, together with irregular basins which are mostly filled by lakes or swamps. In places, the old mountain ranges may be recognized by hills several hundred of meters in height. The northeastern portion, however, became tilted up so that in northern Labrador and Baffin Island, the land rises to more than 1,500 meters above sea level. So basically, the Canadian Shield, in a nutshell, I'll read you this sort of condensed thing here. It's one of the world's largest geologic continental shields, centered on Hudson Bay and extending for 8 million square kilometers, 3 million square miles over eastern, central, and northwestern Canada, from the Great Lakes to the Canadian Arctic and into Greenland, with small extensions into northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and New York, US. Pretty cool, right? So we are in an area where we're right on top of the Canadian Shield, and our rocks are a big part of our landscape here. They're it's just you get to know your rocks really well. How they look, how they feel, how they are slippery in the, when they're wet. Very, very dangerous walking around here. That's why I always take poles, walking poles when I walk around the island, just for security and stability, and you have to have really good walking shoes, boots. Anyways, I hope that answered the question about the scrapes on the rock. She also asks, I wonder what year were the islands inhabited? I don't really know. Most likely, our First Nations people have been here for hundreds of years. So when were the islands first inhabited? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, actually. Were there homes that had to be removed? No. This island, I think there was a small cabin on another plot that had sort of, you know, maybe was built in the late 1800s that had fallen into complete, you know, disuse and disrepair. But that was on another, a neighbor's property. And I don't think they knew much about who was in it. There is one other house on this particular island that was built quite a long time ago, maybe 100 years ago. And that is still, those neighbors that own that cottage, they have, that cottage has always been kept quite well. And so they have renovated it again. And their family has lived there for years and years and years. So thank you for the question, Teresa. That was great. Now, Katie made me laugh with her questions. Katie says, she asks, do you dress up when on the island? I would be in party pants every day. I do dress in normal clothes most days. I would say 9 days out of, no, maybe even more than that. Let's say 19 days out of 20, I dress in clothes every day. On that 20th day, I probably stay in my pajamas for the day. Just like at home. Just like at home. Even though I'm not going anywhere or going to see anybody other than my father-in-law or my kids, I do generally get dressed. I just find that usually I get more done. I just get more done when I'm dressed. Though I do love a good pajama day. And I didn't say that, you know, my pants that I wear every day might not be, you know, dress pants. But I'm usually wearing proper pants. Anyway, Katie also asks, do you have plans for any family friend visitors this summer? You must miss your parents. And yes, I do. I do miss my parents. Do we have plans for family friends? No, we don't. My daughter did bring up a friend, a girl who is in her little bubble and social bubble, and because she's in her bubble, she's therefore in our bubble as well. But my daughter's 19, you know, so we're okay with that. She's being careful, she's being safe, and she has not, you know, she doesn't have a huge expanded social circle at the moment. So she had a friend up for a weekend, and other than that, no. No, this has been a very quiet summer. No visitors. We're not even visiting with the neighbors other than outside. I've met 2 of the neighbors outside on the dock for a quick chat and a catch up. But other than that, no, we haven't been having visitors this summer. And normally that's very unusual for us. Normally the summer is very, very, very busy and full of traveling visitors, relatives, and vacation plans, but not this summer. Let's see what's coming up. Okay, Paige asks, since you're off the grid, does your oven not take as much power as like a freezer would? She's referring to my pork chops recipe. No, I have a regular gas oven. We use propane here. So I have propane tanks outside the cottage, and my father, who is a gas fitter, he ran all of our lines. So I use a regular old gas-powered propane. It's a regular oven and stove for cooking. Does your dear daughter have a summer job so she can't join you during the week? Yes, that is the case. Sarah has a summer job. So she's hard at work during the week, and she tries to come up as often as she can. She does love it up here as well. So, but yeah, she's growing up. Do your parents ever come up to visit you in the summer? My parents, sometimes my dad will come up in the middle of the summer, but it's quite hot here in the middle of the summer, and so my mom tends to wait until the fall if my mom's going to come up. We have had some really lovely Thanksgivings with my parents, and that's when that's their preferred time to come up, when the weather cools down a little bit. And it's not looking like that's going to happen this year, mostly because there probably isn't going to be a celebration, and depending on who's going back to school, and everything's a little up in the air. So normally my parents would come up more in the fall time. And I think those were the, yeah. So thanks, Peg. Good questions. And okay. So Neil and Heather Cockrell asked, do you have tank water, as we call it in Australia? Meaning, do we collect rainwater for drinking, etc.? We're just over an hour northwest of Sydney and are on tank water. 120,000 liter tank with a triple filtration system. Wow. Hoping to install solar soon. We will be totally off the grid. Very, very cool. No, we do not have tank water system. The Great Lakes are fresh water. We are extremely, extremely lucky. We have a pump that sits in the lake and a pipe system that comes directly from the lake that carries the water up. So we have a pump, pumps the water out of the lake into a tank that we keep under the cottage. And it's not a huge tank. It's when all four of us are here using water on a daily basis, we have to run the pump to fill up to run the generator, to turn on the pump, to pump the water up to the tank. And then once the tank is pressurized, then we have enough water for, oh, I don't know. Again, it depends who's taking a shower, who's doing, 5 loads of dishes in a day, that kind of water usage. We might have to run the pump 3-4 times a day. When we have visitors, again, we're running the pump a little bit more often. So when it's just me here, I probably have to only turn the generator on every day and a half or so. And that fills up the tank enough that I have enough water until the next time I have to do it. So I turn the generator on, flip the switch, which turns the pump on, which then pumps the water up to the tank that sits under the cottage. So it's a pretty neat system. We do have a filtration system on it. So there's a filtration system that comes up from the pump that's in the lake. And we don't drink that water. We do drink that water, but the drinking water we put through another reverse osmosis filtration system, and there's a little tap for that in the kitchen. So we use the same, all of the water that we're using comes from the lake. We don't collect rainwater. We don't need to. It all comes from the lake. We have a septic system. So wastewater goes into the septic system. We're not just dumping gray water outside the cottage. There are rules about those sorts of things. So we do have to follow the rules. So yeah, I think that answered the question. Pretty sure. Okay. Let's see. Melanie has a question regarding your boat that you use to go back and forth. I assume that when someone leaves the island, the boat stays on the other side of the bay. What if you would need to get to the mainland when the boat is not available to you? Okay, so I'll deal with that one first. Yes, our boat, so the whaler that we have, that does go back and forth with John. Sarah can also drive that boat. So she goes back and forth usually with John, but if she were to come up on her own, she would be able to take the whaler back and forth. I don't drive the boat. I don't leave the island. I know. I just, like I said, I don't like boats. So my father-in-law has a boat. So there is a boat here. He is here. If there was a situation where we had to get off the island, we would use his boat, the tug style boat that he has. Does someone bring groceries over every time they return to the island? I recall that you said that you don't have a freezer, so I'm curious how you manage food prep. That's a great question. And it is something that we have to, it's something that we're thinking about all the time. Yes, John does the shopping in London. I send him a list before, when I know he's coming, I send him a list a couple of days before he's going to be traveling back up. He does all of the grocery shopping, and then he drives it all up and brings it over. And it's not an easy task because there's not like a an easy pathway from the boat dock to the cottage. So it's usually quite a heavy schlepping of goods back and forth from the boat to the cottage. So anyways, I don't have a freezer. I'm curious how you manage food prep. Yes, my father-in-law has a small freezer, so any overflow of fresh like meats and things like that need to last for more than a week, we use his freezer. Tuna, things like that, canned goods, canned corn, things like that. We usually have a pretty decent stockpile of that to use up throughout the summer. And fresh produce comes up. If it's not here, it's not here. So you learn to make do without everything quite quickly, and substitution. So if I don't have this, but I felt like this, well, I don't have it, so I'll have something else instead. I do quite, you get used to planning. You get used to knowing how many days approximately that you will have with the groceries that are coming up, and you get used to holding things back. So I might not tell Nicholas where something is, or if I'm serving something, I might not serve it all, and I might hold something back, because if you put something out, it's going to get eaten. But if I don't put it out, then I'll have a little bit left for the next day. So, you know, you get really used to doing it. And it was my mother-in-law who taught me the don't put it all out rule. So to this day, that makes me smile when I hold back a few cookies in the box, and I tuck them away back in the cupboard, and then I bring them out the next day. It's quite good. I think that's it for Melanie, so thank you. And let's see. Oh, Arlene Dolan has a question about schooling for Nicholas. Will it be for a grading period, semester, or the school year? Our decision to do virtual schooling with Nicholas. Well, that's kind of all up in the air. The way that they're doing the online virtual school in Ontario is that we will have several deadline options to let the school system know if we would like to return to face-to-face schooling. I think the first time is in end of October, and then the next period is in January. Might only be just 2 times. I'm not sure. I think all of those things are still being worked out, and we're starting with the virtual, and we're just gonna, you know what? We're just gonna take it month by month and see how it goes. So, you know, who knows? He's gonna be learning whatever method he's doing. He'll be learning. He'll be spending lots of quality time with his family as well, which you can never go wrong with that. So anyways, there you go. So Kathy Adams asks, she says, I am a more recent follower and I know where you live, but do not know where the cottage is. Are you on a lake or near the ocean or Hudson Bay? So I think I explained that fairly clearly already, that we're on a very small island on Georgian Bay, which is on Lake Huron, so in Ontario. And I'm moving up. Missy, my friend Missy. Missy wants to know, how are Luna's paws? My dog. Luna has had, when we adopted her, she was 6 years old last October. We adopted her. She came with a very badly infected paw, and it took us months and months to figure out how to resolve the issue with her paw. And yes, her paw is much better. However, I am dealing with another more sensitive area of infection on Luna, that she's allergic to everything. She is allergic to everything. And so it causes her to break out in hives, which I'm medicating on a daily basis. And then she's also, anyways, she's a rash, trying to figure it out. But as a side consequence, I think it's a consequence of the infection rash that I'm dealing with. She has become incontinent. So there have been a few puddles, more than a few, over the last little while. I love that dog. I love that dog. So anyways, that's what I'm trying to sort out with the vet at the moment. It's a never-ending gift with Luna. You never know each day what new thing is going to happen. But she's just such a lovely, loving animal, smart as a whip, and just, she's a joy. So we'll figure it out one way or the other. And let's see, speaking of Luna, here she is. Yes, I know you hear a food. Can you hear her tail? It's hitting the wall. You're a very good girl. Yes, you are. Okay. Let's see. Oh, another question from Cameron. Cameron asks, and Cameron is a woman. Thank you for clearing that up. I don't like to assume. I never like to assume. It's a beautiful name for either. Since you are generously putting yourself out there, I've been wondering if anyone else lives on the island besides your family. If not, does it get kind of scary at times being so isolated? Yes, other people do live on this island. There are 5 cottages total and 6 cottages? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there are 6 cottages total. 4 of them are occupied. One of the 4 it's not fully occupied all the time. They only come up maybe a couple of times a summer for a week or 2. So we don't know them very well. I know that seems funny when there's only 4 people on the island, but they're literally, when they come, they just come for a week's vacation, and they don't we don't really know them very well. The island that we're on is about 75 square acres, and the other few islanders we know fairly well, but again, we're not hanging out overly much this summer. But I think what you could see from the maps at the beginning is that all of these little islands are very, very close together. So it's not like I'm on one island out in the middle of nowhere. There are thousands of little islands just like mine all over the place, and there are people on them. So it is quiet and isolated, but at the same time it's not. Like the other day I showed a view out my front door, and you can see one of my neighbors out the front door. You can see their cottage. They are on their own little island. And they have the whole island. It's a smaller island than what we're on, and their family has been there since the 1940s or 50s, I think. They've been there for a really long time. So it's never lonely. And I like quiet. I like solitude, and I like isolation. I know, only in small batches, but I'm never lonely. I'm never alone. So does that make sense? It's not scary. It might be scary for some people, but it's not scary for me. Let's see what else we've got here. Valerie Bayer says, the rocks in your path seem to have glacial grooves. They do, right? Such a beautiful place. Looking forward to seeing the change of seasons at the lake. Me too. It's always such a beautiful, beautiful time. Okay, the next question comes from Karen. Karen Spurtzel asks, how did your father-in-law find the island and decide to build a cottage on it? And did John grow up on the island as Nicholas and Sarah have done? Well, my in-laws emigrated from England right after they were married, right after they were first married. And in fact, they were supposed to end up further west, but they were driving through Ontario. They stopped to visit a friend in Strathroy, and one thing led to another, and then they ended up deciding that southern Ontario was the place for them. They were visiting, I think they went camping near Parry Sound. My father-in-law has always loved looking at the local real estate. So I think he saw an advertisement for the land out here, and he had the real estate agent bring them out. And I think it was something ridiculous like the end of October. So it was cold and windy and kind of crazy. And I think my mother-in-law thought he was nutso. But they came out here. My father-in-law fell in love with it. He convinced my mother-in-law that she would like it too. And he bought the land out here. So that was in the 1960s. And then they started building the cottage at, I think when did he started building it, either 1969, 1970, 71 or so it was finished. And yeah, John grew up here. So John and he has a sister as well. And so they grew up here, and it's all he's ever known. And we started dating when I was 16. And so since the summer that I was 17, I've been coming here too. So it's been a big part of my life as well. Okay, so I had some questions from Anna, Tanzania. She wants to know, she has a few questions. How big is the island? So again, it's about 75 acres. How long would it take to walk from one end to the other? You can walk around the entire circumference of the island in about an hour and a half. About an hour and a half, takes about that long. Are cars allowed on the island? No. There are barely any, there are no roads, there are no basically walking paths. It's all rock, and it's just not that kind of place. Is there some kind of ferry service, or does everyone have their own boat? Anyone who has a cottage out here either has their own boat, or they would, maybe hire a water taxi to bring them out. Sometimes if there are vacationers who are renting a cottage, they might rent a boat or have someone bring them out. There are no ferries. There's a tour boat that goes around a couple of times a day, but no other large ferries. Are there people living permanently on the island? No, it's a Three Seasons cottage because, well, it's an island in Ontario. So in the winter time, you would be landlocked for about 3 months. That's not to say that we haven't considered it, and it's possibly something that we're thinking of for the future, to spend an entire year here. That's the dream. But anyways, more about that another day. Yeah, so Anna, thank you. Great questions. Now my battery light's flashing, so let me just quickly change that out and we'll continue. Okay, fresh battery. Here we go. Okay, next question comes from Sue, Random Stitcher on Instagram. Okay, so Sue asks, how are medical emergency handled? Medical emergencies. Air ambulance on floats. My professional life is air traffic, so I'm nerding out on that question. So Sue, great question, and is actually one that I receive quite frequently, but I'm not sure that I've ever answered it, live. So my father-in-law is a retired GP. So our very first line of defense is my father-in-law. So whenever anything happens, he's the first person we ask for advice. My mother is also a retired nurse and a retired emergency room nurse. So generally, if my father-in-law is not around, then I will be calling my mom on the phone for advice. Now, if it were something that then would require like true emergency services, there's a Coast Guard station in Parry Sound. As the crow flies, it's about 45 minutes away. And in fact, for the very first time in my history of being here, I saw the Coast Guard helicopter, and I don't know who they were picking up. They did land on a little island not that far away from here and then took off again. So they were probably picking someone up and taking them to the hospital. So Coast Guard boat, we always see the Coast Guard boat go past maybe a couple times a week, and they have emergency services. If it were a dire emergency, you would call 911 and they would put you through to the appropriate, you know, we have an address here. It's just a bit of a more unusual address than most people would have. So we do have, we have thought about the logistics of it. We have a little bit of a flat patch of ground behind us should, you know, they have to land. But again, they're professionals. They know what they're doing far better than we do. So we would trust to them. And again, Parry Sound is really not that far away. We also have neighbors. Like I've said, we have neighbors all around. We have a pump. So for things like fire, which is a concern, especially in seasons that are dry, we have a small pump in the boathouse with a fire hose attached to it. So if it were something small, we would start with that. But if it were anything more than that, we would just have to get off the island, because you couldn't get fire services out here fast enough if it was something more serious than that. But again, we're on a lake, so we would get in the boat. There's always a boat here. If my father-in-law's boat wasn't here, there's a fishing boat in the boathouse. You know, and there's always a way off the island. Good question. So let's see. Lynette Davies, just a general question. What do you think is the best and the worst thing about life on the island? That's a great question. And that's a hard one to answer, actually. Because neither, okay, I'll take the easier one first. The worst thing about being on the island. Nothing. There is nothing. There's no worst thing. There's a minor annoyance of the fact that I can't have a super duper long hot shower. That's about it. I have a 5-gallon hot water tank. This is why you always see my hair looking like this. I have a lot of hair. It takes a long time to wash this hair. So normal morning routine is a really quick shower, and there's no lazing around in the shower because it's a quick one. So I always miss just a little bit my hot shower from home. You know what? There are other things that are maybe a little bit worrisome, but not overly scary. There's usually a bear that we have to be aware of. There are rattlesnakes. The Eastern Massasauga rattler. It is a poisonous snake. We do have them here. They are apparently endangered, but I can tell you they're not endangered. We see them all the time, you know. Anyways, neither here nor there. My next viewer question gets into this a little bit more. So again, there's no worst thing, really. The best thing, everything. Everything. I couldn't choose the best thing because I love it all. I love the nature. I saw a bald eagle last week. I saw the sandhill cranes flying overhead. I see terns and seagulls, and there are otters, there are minks, there's a beaver. Now the beaver, my father-in-law is not a fan. I know lots of people who know beavers. There's a reason the expression busy as a beaver. They are industrious. Lately, the beaver has been coming up and pooping on my father-in-law's dock on a daily basis. He hasn't been impressed. I don't know why he's choosing that particular spot on the dock, but the beaver seems to like to take care of his morning ablutions on the dock. Anyways, you know, everything is a little bit magical. It's a little bit magical. I heard the whippoorwill again the other night. There's so much. The nature is amazing. Being able to look at the water, being on the water, The kids being able to grow up here, being able to spend time together as a family. That's the best part. That's the best part. So thank you. That was a great question. Farm Boys Love, and again, I know your name and I can see your Instagram profile, but I'm sorry, your first name has escaped me. I do have a question. What do you do in an emergency situation, be it civil or health? Again, I answered that a little bit already. Coast Guard, my father-in-law, medical supplies. There's always a medical kit available. We have, we don't take risks, if that makes sense. We know what to watch out for, and it's not to say that nothing would ever not happen. Did I get my double negative right there? It's just that we are careful in how we do things. We know the rocks are slippery, so we always wear proper footwear and carry walking sticks when needed, even when it hasn't been raining, because you never know when a rock is going to be slippery if you just step on it the wrong way, which would easily lead to a broken, sprained limb, you know, falling down. We know that there are rattlesnakes. We know that they are lazy. They don't like to move. It's very easy to step on one if you're not watching where you're going. So again, boots. You have to wear boots because they don't strike higher than, you know, their strike zone is kind of ankle level. So if you're wearing a good pair of boots, your chances are pretty good that you're not going to be injured. You don't stick your hand in a spreader bush or juniper. I think that's what their proper name. You don't stick your hands in them. You know, you don't go blueberry picking without taking a stick and standing back and poking the blueberry bush, listening, watching. Then you pick blueberries. You don't sit down on a rock and put your hands behind you and not look where you're putting your hands. It's just, it becomes second nature. And so you know all of these things that you're watching out for, and you're just careful. Now, civil emergency, forest fire, if anything like that were to happen, we have all of the same alert systems that anyone else in the province would have. We would get alerts on our phone and we would just act accordingly. So that, in that way, that's really no different being out here. We have access to everything else that other people do. So I think that explained that okay. And IDL America also, she said, I'm sure that path gets pretty slippery when it rains. You're right on. They sure do. They sure do. Okay, Jackie Duggan, this is not a cottage question. This is a stitching question. So she says, I want to try 1/1, but how do you know if the pattern is suitable? Are there some that shouldn't be done that way? Well, the answer to 1/1 is there are some things that would be like quarter stitches. You couldn't do quarter stitches or fractional stitches easily 1/1. So is that about it? I don't know. What else would I look for? I would kind of look at a pattern and you just know, because you can do back stitching 1/1. You can do specialty stitches. Well, no, that, scratch that. Specialty stitches are a whole thing of their own. It would depend on the specialty stitch, but you could do a French knot. You could do anything like that. But basically 1/1 is going to be your cross. Doing a quarter stitch, or you could do a half. No, you couldn't do a half stitch. Of course you couldn't do a half stitch, but you could do one leg one color and the other leg the other color. So if you want to try 1/1, just go for it. You know, what's to be lost? A little bit of fabric and a little bit of floss. Well worth the time to experiment and see what you can do and what you can't do. And I think you'll have fun trying it. 1/1 is really fun. And it's so tiny and pretty and perfect, and it's fun. Enjoy. Rachel Ray. Rachel Ray, also YouTube channel, not the cooking Rachel Ray, but the stitching diamond queen, diamond painting queen, Rachel Ray. She's lovely. You'll enjoy her channel. So her question is, oh, she's got a couple of questions here. Do you have a well? I already answered that. No, and it wouldn't be feasible with the rock. You'd never be able to do it out here. We, again, lake water, pump under the cottage, tank. Do you have to use or treat rainwater? No. I did already talk about that. My biggest question is, how do you keep the bears away? I would be so worried. Okay, so the bears. Yes, the bears. And I should be clear that normally it's bear, singular, not plural. There was one year that we had a mother bear and 2 cubs. Sometimes we will have a couple of bears, maybe an older one and a younger one, but that's unusual. Bears are very territorial. I should say, we have black bears here. So these are not grizzly bears like you would have in Western Canada. Black bears are quite shy. They are quite timid, even though they are massive, huge, scary looking things. They're actually they're quite timid, and most of the time are going to be far more afraid of you than you are of it. Even though that, seems really hard to believe if you're not used to bears. And we're not really used to bears out here. Bears on the mainland were very, very common. But bears out in the islands were quite unusual until, when did we start having a bear? Maybe 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when they started blasting on the mainland to build the highway, the main highway. They got rid of the small single lane highway, and they built I think in the UK you call it a dual carriageway. They built a 4-lane highway, and when they were blasting to do that combined with bigger population of bears, it kind of forced them out into the islands. So when we saw our very first bear, my mother-in-law was terrified, and she never really got over her unease of the bear. But when we first had one, it was quite unnerving. They are massive, majestic creatures. They really are. And if you're lucky enough to see a cub from far away, they are the sweetest, playful creatures that you'll see. So yes, we have had a bear scare the year that I said we had the mother and the 2 cubs, and I've told that story when it happened a couple of years ago. And it was completely our own fault. So we were in the midst of a major drought a few summers back. We knew there was a mother bear with cubs on the island, and we had left the window open and the door to the breeze room. So there was a cross breeze that went through, and I had left some fruit out on the counter. And so that cross breeze picked up the scent of the fruit, carried it right out the back door. The mother bear came up onto the deck with the cubs and put her paws up on the door to sniff. And you can see she actually took she put her teeth into the screen. So there are little holes from, you can tell where her claws got stuck, and her mouth sort of bit into the screen because she was trying to see if she could get in. And anyways, the sound woke us up because the back deck is very close to our bedroom. And once she heard us, she took off. One of the cubs got stuck under one of the deck chairs at the back and couldn't figure out how to get back, and so sort of made this bawling noise which if you've ever heard a bear cub make this noise, you don't think it could possibly come from this teeny tiny little thing. And the mother stopped where she was and she stood up on her feet. You know, and some people mistake that, thinking that when bears stand up like that, they're getting ready to charge, or, you know, what they do is they do that so that they can see better. So they stand up so that they can see what's happening. Fortunately, at that point in time, the cub figured out how to get out and got off the deck and then ran towards its mother, and then the three of them took off. So fortunately, it had a good ending. The bear could have gotten into the cottage, and that would have been a very dangerous situation, because of course then we would have been aware. Then the bear freaks out, you freak out, and that's when things get really, really dangerous, because the bear can't figure out how to get back out again quickly. But anyways, our fault. So since then, we've taken precautions. We now have bars on the door. So every night when we go to bed, bars go on the door. The rest of the cottage is high enough off the ground that it's, anyway. I know, I'm making this sound great, aren't I? Rachel Ray, you're never gonna come visit, are you? Anyways, how do we keep safe from the bears? We now put all food away. All food goes away. At nighttime, the windows are closed. Any window that's out in the main part of the cottage, in the kitchen, in the living room, all of those windows are closed. We open up a few windows in the bedroom. We leave those open. There's no crossbreeds there that carry scent of food or anything like that. And we are aware when we're outside, we're looking around, we're watching for bear scat, so that we know if a bear has been recently in the area. And if that is the case, if we're seeing a lot of droppings, then we know that, you know, we shouldn't probably be letting the kids out wandering around too much on their own. You know, other than that, like I said, black bears are quite timid. So if you know to stand still, make yourself appear bigger, and make lots of noise, not turn and run and appear like prey, then that's just the best way to handle it. And other than that one time with the mother bear on the deck looking for food, we haven't had any other bear encounters at all. So, and in fact, we know there's one this year on one of the little, like, bears are swimmers. They're very, very good swimmers. And usually if a bear is on your island, that bear travels the few islands in the immediate surrounding area searching for food, because they require a fair bit of land to provide enough food for, they're eating all day long. That's all they're doing, is hunting for food. So we know there was a bear on a neighbor's island, but we haven't seen it yet at all this year, and no sign of it on our island. So far. And Luna's got a pretty good sniffer, and she's never alerted to anything at all. So, not this year. Things are looking good this year. So Rachel, thanks for the question. I hope I didn't scare you too much with my story. Let's see. Heather asks, all the food related, drinking water, and showing logistical questions that you mentioned would be interesting to hear about. I think I've answered everything like that already. Plus you mentioned you didn't have a freezer. Nope, I don't have a freezer. Not here. The only thing my husband misses are ice cubes. He does miss ice cubes. I could take them or leave them, so it's fine. Teal. Hello, Teal. I can see why you need walking sticks to get around. I'm excited that you're at your cottage in the fall. It's going to be so pretty. Yes, it is. So my question is, how long does it take you to get to your city home, to your off-the-grid home? And I did answer that already. But thanks for the question, Teal. About 5 hours plus a boat ride. Lynette had another comment about the measuring metric versus imperial. That was funny. And that's it. that's it. I made it to the end of the list. That's all of the questions that I had. Hopefully this wasn't too rambly and boring for you. I hope this was okay. It was fun for me to do, talking about, you know, sharing a little bit of my life up here with you. I hope you found it a little bit interesting. Well, if not, I guess you probably turned off this video a long time ago. So anyways, there you have it. So that's it for me today. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to do a really quick editing job on my chatty part here. I have already edited the whip parade that I'm going to put at the end here, and the map section at the beginning. So I just have to slide in these little chatty bits in the middle of the video. And while I do that, I'm going to go and work on my secret stitch for my smalls exchange. So that's how you're going to find me for the rest of the day. It is now 3:30. I think I chatted for far too long, but it was fun. Thank you for humoring me with your questions. It's always fun. And I will be back tomorrow. Don't forget, tomorrow we're going to go through those bags right there. I don't remember that blue and white one there. I think I know, I have a few projects in that one. I know one of them. But I think there's maybe one or two others that I'm unfamiliar with, or not unfamiliar with, but I've forgotten about. So that's gonna be fun. Okay, so that's tomorrow, and I guess that's it. I hope you're well. I hope you're staying safe, and happy stitching, everybody. I'll check in tomorrow. Take care.